Caitlin Clark just broke 5 FIBA World Records in a single game during her Team USA Senior National Team debut. And then, 24 hours later, her own coach and teammates tried to make sure it never happened again. That's not speculation. That's what Team USA head coach Kara Lawson basically admitted at the post-game press conference after the sloppy Puerto Rico win. And the basketball world is losing its mind over it. So let's talk about exactly what she said, what Angel Reese did on 4 separate possessions, and why the anti-Caitlin Clark plan is now impossible to deny. Because the receipts are all there on film. Let me know down in the comments below why you think Coach Kara Lawson held back Caitlin.
I thought Puerto Rico played very, very hard, and they played hard the entire time. They challenged us with their effort, and I thought they made a lot of hustle plays to create baskets for themselves. And this was more of an uneven game for us on both ends. We talked about it as a team, and I thought we had some good spots, but I also thought we had some rough spots, and that's good. It's good to have rough spots sometimes. You're able to kind of figure some things out, and we're still figuring things out.
What happened? Where was all the transition offense from yesterday? Where was all the team ball from yesterday? Nah, non-existent today.
You show up to your first day on the job, and by lunchtime, you've broken every record the company has ever set. That's literally what Caitlin Clark did in her Team USA Senior National Team debut against Senegal. She came off the bench, played 19 minutes, scored 17 points, dished out 12 assists, and didn't turn the ball over once. 4 of 5 from 3. 5 for 5 from the free throw line. In 19 minutes off the bench. That's not a debut, that's a takeover. Those numbers weren't just good, they were historically unprecedented. FIBA actually had to go back through decades of records across every country to figure out what she had just done. And what they found was 5 separate records, all broken in the same night by the same player in her very first game.
5 players at a time.
Hockey subs.
Hockey subs.
Kelsey Plum with her first. Caitlin Clark on the move, over to Billings. Billings on the left-hand side, off the glass, and how dangerous is Team USA?
Record 1. Most assists by any player in a Team USA Senior National Team debut, men or women. Nobody in the entire history of USA basketball had ever walked into their first game and facilitated at that level. Not once. Clark did it in under 20 minutes. Record 2. Most assists in any senior national team debut across all countries. So she didn't just top the USA list, she topped the entire world's list. Every country, every player, every debut in FIBA history. She topped all of them on her first try.
High-level basketball.
Ryan Howard, back to Clark. Clark into Irfin, and Irfin off the glass, the ball movement.
Record 3. Second most assists in FIBA qualifying tournament history, full stop. 1 game in, and she's already sitting in the conversation with the best single-game assist performances the tournament has ever produced. 1 game. Record 4. Most assists by any bench player in FIBA history, men or women. She wasn't even starting. She came off the bench and still did something no bench player in international basketball history had ever done before.
Here's Clark once again. She's got 8 points. She wanted to pull up for 3, but gonna share it with Ryan Howard, who puts up a 3, and that's her second of the game. Give her. Comes off the screen from Irfin, kicks it over to Clark. Clark behind the back crossover finds Ryan Howard. Howard for 3. And we said it, the connection between Caitlin Clark and Ryan Howard has been beautiful.
Record 5. 8 assists in the first half alone, with 0 turnovers. The highest first half assist total in qualifying game history. She did all of that before halftime and didn't give the ball away a single time, not once. And are you ready for what makes those numbers even wilder? Ryan Howard had a massive scoring night in that game, and a huge chunk of it came directly from Clark's reads and passes. She was out there for 19 minutes and made her teammates look elite. The international game didn't slow her down. She walked in and immediately bent it to her will.
Caitlin is looking to share the ball, comes off the screen. A nice pass into Copper. Copper up and under, and what a finish for Copper, and what a setup by point guard Caitlin Clark.
So you'd expect the next game to be about building on that, right? More minutes, more trust, more opportunity. You just watched your player break 5 world records. You ride that. You lean into it. Instead, something very different happened when Team USA took the floor against Puerto Rico, and the footage is genuinely uncomfortable to watch. Let's talk about something that almost never happens at a FIBA World Cup qualifier: the opposing coach's daughter showing up with a fan sign for a player on the other team. A sign for Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers. The Puerto Rico head coach's own kid was sitting in those stands rooting for the player her mom was trying to stop. Think about what that actually means for a second.
Reese. Brian Howard, who's the TCL player of the game just yesterday. Kalia Copper, and of course another fan favorite, Caitlin Clark checks into the game. There's a lot of Caitlin Clark jerseys and signs from little girls, little boys all over. And that crowd here right now because they just announced Caitlin Clark's name.
Caitlin Clark fever is for real. You got that one, right?
And it wasn't just one family losing their mind over Clark. The arena was packed. Not like decent attendance packed, lined up outside, buzzing inside, playoff energy packed. People were there specifically because Caitlin Clark was in the building. FIBA's own broadcast crew had a dedicated cameraman following Clark around the whole time. Not just tracking her during live plays, between plays, during timeouts, during warm-ups. FIBA made a production decision that she was the face of this tournament, and they showed it through their cameras before anybody officially said a word about it.
That we saw in the first game, as you mentioned, those hockey stops, I think is going to happen probably the same thing, just trying to differentiate between the different 5 matchups, 5 players on the court, 5
And the buzz wasn't staying inside that arena either. The phrase Caitlin Clark fever was spreading through international sports media. Outlets that never cover women's basketball were writing about this qualifier because she was in it. Sports journalists from countries that don't even have a WNBA team were filing stories about this tournament. That's not normal. That's not something you manufacture. But that's not all. Her being there wasn't just pulling attention to herself. It was pulling new eyes toward women's basketball as a whole on a global stage. The Indiana Fever brand was traveling internationally because of one player. People who had never watched a WNBA game were suddenly curious about the sport because Clark was playing in their time zone.
Mírala, mírala. Tengo que sacar la foto bien ahora. No puedo. Saca tú, pues no puedo. El teléfono mío no me deja. Oh my God. Oh my...
FIBA is treating her like the main attraction. The arena is sold out and buzzing. The opposing coach's kid is holding up her name on a sign, and fans in the building described a completely different energy every single time Clark touched the ball. When she was on the floor, people leaned in. When she came off, you could feel the crowd settle down. That kind of pull is real and it's rare.
Brianna Jones. Caitlin Clark gets in the passing lane, goes coast to coast for the and one opportunity. Makes the layup off the glass. She asked her teammates, did that go in? Now she gets a chance at the foul line. She wanted the intentional. I think she got hit in the head there, but let's take another look. Caitlin Clark jumps the passing lane, coast to coast. Let's see. Oh, the referee got in the way. You can see that. She did get hit in the head. She's making a case for herself, but she's going to go to the line for just...
That energy in Puerto Rico wasn't built by ESPN. It wasn't an Indiana Fever marketing campaign. It was just people from all over reacting to watching someone special play basketball. Women's basketball hasn't had a player move the needle like this on a global stage in a long time. And this tournament hadn't even finished its first full weekend yet. But while the fans were there for Clark, and the cameras were on Clark, and the opposing coach's own family was cheering for Clark, the people controlling her minutes had a very different agenda.
You see all the publicity Caitlin Clark's getting today? Did you see the news? Everybody's talking about Caitlin Clark. We can't have that. The transition offense, Caitlin Clark making passes that nobody in the league has ever seen before. We can't have that. Slow it down, Kara Lawson. Switch it up. We got to make everybody else shine. We don't want her. Everybody else needs to shine. Today's night, it's going to be Paige's night and Angel's night. Yeah. What a brutal game, folks. What a brutal game.
There's a specific kind of frustration that comes from watching someone look directly at an open teammate and just not pass. It happened to Caitlin Clark at least 4 times in the Puerto Rico game, and every single one of those possessions involved Angel Reese.
Angel Reese is playing the point guard. She's not looking Caitlin Clark's way one time, deliberately not passing her the ball. And
Clark was doing everything right without the ball. Moving, creating angles, reading the defense, putting herself in spots where a pass would turn into easy buckets. She was open, and Reese looked right at her and went the other way. Not once, not twice, at least 4 times.
they're not going to pass her the ball. Look at this. They're both going for rebound. But Angel Reese thinks she's the better point guard. She takes it up and just wastes a possession. Here we go again. Angel Reese is playing point guard.
The first couple times it happened, okay, maybe you give Reese the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she didn't see her. Maybe the timing was slightly off. Basketball is fast and sometimes you just miss a read. By the third and fourth time, that explanation stops working. Clark was open. Reese had the ball. And Reese chose someone else, or just forced her own play into a tighter window than she needed to. That's a decision, not a mistake.
Stop putting Angel Reese in the game with Caitlin Clark. Look at her. She runs up the court and then throws it backwards. And then Caitlin Clark makes a beautiful move, dries it, dishes it over her shoulder, and Angel Reese throws it out of bounds. Caitlin Clark drops a dime. I'm just going through the possessions. Another great pass. See, Caitlin Clark moves the ball, but the problem is, I don't think she's going to get the equal opportunity. Look at.
And then there was the physical moment. Reese bumped Clark during a sequence where there was just no reason for contact to happen at all. It wasn't a hard foul. It wasn't a play on the ball. It was just a bump in a spot that made no sense. Clips of that moment were all over social media within hours of the final buzzer because people could see it wasn't accidental. It looked pointed. It looked personal.
Here we go. Angel Reese, look at. She doesn't even look Caitlin Clark's way. I can't make this up. When it happens 10 times, she throws it to Jackie Young instead, but Jackie Young finds Caitlin Clark, and Caitlin Clark knocks down the tray.
Social media did not let it go quietly. Fans were cutting together the look-off possessions back-to-back and posting them side by side. The comments were not kind to Reese. People who had already been watching the tension between these two all season felt like they were watching their suspicions confirmed on an international stage, in a Team USA jersey, in front of a global audience. That's not a good look, but that's not all. The Reese possessions were the most visible part of a bigger problem. The overall flow of the game when Clark was on the floor felt off in a way that was hard to ignore if you watched the Senegal game the night before. Against Senegal, every time Clark touched the ball, the offense just hummed. Her teammates, were moving, the defense was scrambling, shots were opening up. Against Puerto Rico, there were long stretches where Clark was physically on the court and barely involved. She was there. The ball just wasn't finding her.
Look at this. Angel Reese. Like, we're trying to move fast. Just lollygagging up the court. And then Caitlin Clark finds Angel Reese. But it's killing the momentum. Caitlin Clark, look how fast she gets the ball up the court. But you cannot get momentum in 4 minutes when Angel Reese is playing point guard.
When Clark is being used correctly, defenders have to account for her. They can't just sit on other players because she demands attention from behind the arc. When teammates refuse to involve her, that pressure completely disappears. The defense doesn't have to worry about her anymore, and suddenly the whole offense is easier to guard. That's not a theory, that's just how basketball spacing works. And the context here makes it so much worse. This is the player who, the night before, in the same tournament, in the same gym, set 5 FIBA World Records. Her teammates were there. They watched her do it. They saw what she looked like when the ball was moving through her hands. And then the very next game, this is how she gets treated on the floor.
Here we go again. She doesn't look Caitlin Clark's way. She won't the entire game. Look at Caitlin Clark has her hands up ready for the ball. Angel Reese is never going to pass the ball to Caitlin Clark. But Caitlin Clark passes the ball to Angel Reese. But it looks like this is how it's going to be. I like the first game when they had Kelsey Plum, Ryan Howard. But if Angel Reese is going to play point guard and not pass Caitlin Clark the ball, she can't play that up-tempo, fast offense that she's wanting to play.
1 possession, you explain it. 2 possessions, you stretch it. 4 possessions and a bump is just a pattern. Fans watching both games back-to-back could see exactly what changed. The ball stopped going to Clark and the offense paid for it immediately. But what makes all of this bigger than just on-court drama is what Kara Lawson said when she sat down at that press conference microphone after the game. Most coaches are careful at press conferences. Safe language, team-first answers, nothing that gives anyone ammunition. So when Kara Lawson sat down after the Puerto Rico win and said what she said, it landed differently. This wasn't careful. This was a window straight into how she was actually thinking about Caitlin Clark.
But in terms of the team ball that we saw yesterday, in terms of anything being exciting from today, just simply wasn't there. It was a snooze fest today. Caitlin Clark getting looked off by teammates. Angel Reese dribbling the ball right past Caitlin Clark only to turn it over. It was bad news bears out there.
Lawson had already been using the phrase fact-finding mode to describe her approach to rotations and lineups. And look, on the surface that sounds fine. You're experimenting, you're figuring out your roster, you're building towards something. Reasonable enough. But then she went further and said she wanted everyone to shine, not just Caitlin Clark. Those were essentially her words. And she said it the day after Clark broke 5 FIBA World Records in 19 minutes off the bench. She wasn't talking abstractly about team balance. She was talking about deliberately pulling the spotlight away from the player who had just made history.
Did it sound like she's refusing to answer questions about the starting lineup? Because at the end, she said, well, everybody's playing a different role and they're the number one. I don't want to hear none of that.
But that's not all. When a reporter asked her directly about Clark's performance in the Puerto Rico game specifically, Lawson dodged it, didn't answer, pivoted away. For a coach who watched her players set historic records less than 24 hours earlier, refusing to even address that player's game is a choice. And it's a loud one. Look at the starting 5 Lawson put out against Puerto Rico: Chelsea Gray, Paige Beckers, Kelsey Plum, Monique Billings, Kiki Iriafen, no Clark. And the offense showed it immediately. Team USA's pace dropped. Ball movement slowed down. The starting unit was grinding against Puerto Rico's physical defense, struggling to generate clean looks. Then Clark came in with the second unit and the tempo shifted right away. Faster transitions, better reads, more ball movement. The difference was visible in real time.
Coach, you were talking about how there was some good and there was some bad. Was the stuff that you have to work on done by Puerto Rico? Was it self-imposed? And if it's the latter, how do you kind of go about navigating just not self-harm in these games?
I think anytime there's breakdowns, it's usually a combination of both. So we weren't as tight in our coverages as we wanted to be, and they exploited that. And so if we can be tighter, you would hope they wouldn't be able to exploit it as easily, maybe.
And here's the part that's almost hard to believe. Puerto Rico ran a box-and-one hybrid defense specifically designed to keep the ball out of Clark's hands. A team that was going to lose by 30 points still built their entire defensive game plan around stopping one player. The opponent respected her more than her own coach trusted her. Let that sit for a second. So let's talk about this. Everyone should shine philosophy in practice. Wanting multiple players to contribute is fine. That's normal coaching. But when one player just broke 5 world records in under 20 minutes, and your immediate response is to design the next game so that doesn't happen again, that's not a philosophy. That's a decision about one specific person.
I think what I like the most is how much they share the basketball, their willingness to play with one another and to be excited for each other's success. We're playing a lot of people. They're playing a lot less than their normal minutes. It's different for them rotationally. I mean, all of these players start, with their respective WNBA teams, and all of them are, like, if not the number one option, the number two option on their team. And so you're asking them to play a different role, in particular on the offensive end, and they're all doing it willingly.
Lawson didn't stand at a podium and announce an anti-Clark agenda. She didn't have to. She said she wanted everyone to shine, not just Clark. She refused to answer a direct question about Clark's game. She started a lineup without Clark after Clark dismantled the previous team less than 24 hours ago. The press conference didn't reveal the plan. It just confirmed what the box score was already showing. Here's the thing about everything that happened in Puerto Rico. It actually proves something that every Fever fan already knew. When Clark is limited, the offense suffers. When she's free to play her game, the offense is historically good. Not slightly better, not marginally more efficient. Historically good. 5 world records in one night good. And in Indianapolis in 2026, nobody is designing a game plan to dim that down.
Too strong. I know she's frustrated with herself there. This Team USA comes back the other way, looking to punish. Caitlin Clark pulls up from deep. And those are the Caitlin Clark, the no-go threes we're used to seeing when she's in rhythm. Doesn't think about it, checks it out, but now one hit absolutely.
Because that's the real takeaway from all of this. Lawson wanted everyone to shine. Reese was looking her off 4 possessions in a row. Puerto Rico was running a box-and-1 just to slow her down. And Clark still made Team USA better every single minute she was on the floor. Picture what she does when none of that is working against her. Picture what she does when the coach actually wants the ball in her hands and the teammates are actively trying to find her. That's the Indiana Fever in 2026. She's not walking into a locker room full of veterans competing for shots and attention. She's the system. The whole offense gets built around what she does best: pushing pace, finding cutters, pulling defenders out to the arc, and then threading passes through gaps that most players don't even see. The Fever aren't trying to manage her minutes so someone else can shine. They're trying to build something around her. So if you're a Fever fan watching this, the Puerto Rico game isn't a reason to stress. It's actually a reason to feel good about what's coming, because it showed exactly what happens when Clark is used wrong. And now, you know what right looks like by comparison. The Senegal game was right. 5 records, 12 assists, 0 turnovers, the whole offense clicking in under 20 minutes. That's the baseline. That's what she does when people let her play. The people who tried hardest to limit her in Puerto Rico actually made the strongest case for why Indianapolis is where she belongs. Lawson's rotation decisions, Reese's possessions, all of it just put a spotlight on how different Clark's situation is with the Fever. In Indiana, she doesn't have to fight for the ball. She doesn't have to compete with teammates who'd rather force their own play. She just plays. Are you ready for the 2026 season? Because if this tournament showed anything, it's that Clark operating at full speed is something defenses at any level genuinely cannot handle. Let me know down in the comments below why you think Coach Kara Lawson held back Caitlin. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.